Okay, we're going to start off with with Gavin. Dr. Gavin Harris, who's known to many of us as the owner of the Cross Arts bookshop in Roslyn Street, but he is also a professional researcher who is currently working on the history of King's Cross. So, welcome Gavin and thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I see my job is to describe the building site, what they intend to do, and then I will offer something what I'll call a critique of what they're planning to do. I've handed out some copies, but there's some more here, of 10 points that I establish as worthy to think about from my reading of the documents. I spent a few hours going through their documents. If you go onto the DA website, you'll see that the application has possibly 40 different appendices, attachments or whatever. They contradict each other a bit. All of them are incomplete, and I will try and draw some of those inconsistencies out. Okay, first thing you'll probably notice that Piccadilly Holding Company is also Iris. Some of the documents talk about Piccadilly, others talk about Iris. It's the same thing. Now, at present, they own all the business premises from Fitzroy Gardens through to Roslyn Street. That's the Fountain Cafe at the bottom of Kingsley Hall, Blake's Pharmacy, I'm only talking about the street level, of course, the Bourbon Cellars, which was once upon a time Club Swans, the Potts Point Chemist space, which is now closed, the Tobacconist and the Empire Hotel, or pub, whatever it is. Kingsley Hall, as you know, is the building next to the fountain. It has it's 10 stories high. All the rest of the buildings are presently 3 stories high. However, number 30A is 7 stories high, and that's been the Backpackers. It was built in 1926. It had, as an Art Deco work, it has now closed-in balconies, aluminium frame windows, and painted brick. The DA is slippery and inconsistent, as I've said. Some important details are in the ancillary report. Now, I'm quoting quite a bit from their statements. The developer claims that King's Cross is Potts Point's entertainment, retail and commercial precinct. So part of Potts Point, King's Cross, is about entertainment. At the same time, and this is part of the inconsistency, it claims Potts Point is Sydney's entertainment precinct. The whole space is an entertainment space. The DA states, almost the entire street frontage on the ground level would be occupied by bar spaces, which is in keeping with the desired character of Potts Point. It also wants, quote, to retain Darlinghurst Road and Bayswater Road as a precinct which supports a mix of daytime commercial and retail uses. So there's an incongruity there. The developer asserts that it is providing, quote, additional retail premises to service needs. He claims, quote, the bulk and scale of the proposal is appropriate for the site's context and will not have adverse visual impacts on the streetscape or surrounding properties. The proposal will generate positive social impacts by increasing the supply of quality housing within the local government area. The proposal will generate positive economic impacts by fostering employment opportunities and potential increased trade for local businesses. The point is, one often talks about retail, and when you come down to it, retail equals bars. But in fact, it's one bar posing as 2 bars. Okay, the building scale. There are 3 levels, there will be 3 levels of basement for 101 cars, as well as motorbikes and push bikes. If you look at the green, if you look at, the pink page, you'll see the ground level floor plan at the back, second page. The developer says he wants to retain Darlinghurst and Bayswater Road as a precinct which supports a mix of daytime, commercial and retail uses. That's another quote, of course. But the plan shows that this is the allocated retail space. This is the allocated retail space with a very, very narrow window front and big windows in Barncliffe Lane. This is the bar space, and there's a passage joining the two bars. So, okay, we'll get on to detail later. The proposed bars will be 1,395 metres square, or at the street level. There's another figure mentioned somewhere else, 1,275 metres square. The other retail space will be a mere and very awkward 470 metres square. It will have a narrow street front. This means the bars have about 66% of the ground floor area, and even more significantly, about 80% of the street frontage, and that is, of course, on Darlinghurst Road and on Roslyn Street. I'll come back to that. The upper floors. The complex will have, quote, a predominant street wall height of 6 stories to Darlinghurst Road, which complies with the 6-storey control applying to this part of the site. However, the drawings show that there are 5, 7 and 8 levels setback, and this diagram here shows that. This, of course, that's where the Lido is, so the whole space on the ground floor is taken up with enclosed buildings, with loading docks, etc. As you get higher up, more and more of the east side cuts away with terraces and gardens, etc. But significantly, the west side, Darlinghurst Road, is sheer for the first 6 floors, and then above that it steps back a little bit for 2 floors. It is not, as everybody will know from the diagrams, it's not one space, it's carved up, simulating the fact that it's a series of buildings. The Darlinghurst Road will be a 6-storey wall with 1 and 2 stories of shallow setbacks. The back of the buildings, I've said, will fall away. The council plan allows 6-storey buildings, but most of Darlinghurst Road and Roslyn Street has 2, 3 and 4-storey buildings. There will be communal open space. That is, of course, for the residents and nothing to do with the general public. The proposal provides communal open spaces on level 1 podium and on level 5. Communal needs spaces which the occupants share, but not the wider public. These spaces do not meet the solar access requirements, and they admit that themselves. Okay, the building's height. The building complies with the 30-metre height control, but exceeds the 22-metre height control because its lift overruns, its stairs, its plank, its small sections on the roof and portions of the apartments on the top floor. The complex is 26.7 metres at its highest point, but this is only a small part of the building. Of course, as I've said, that's the Darlinghurst front, and of course it looks out over the neighbours' rooftops, and it's about getting views of the harbour and of the CBD. There seems to be no respect for the neighbours. The height, the building materials, the bar's tacky old-style Vegas aesthetic glare against our heritage. The council's DA form says the existing buildings that exceed the height context do not set the precedent for future building height. Because Kingsley Hall is 10 stories high, and because the old Backpackers was 7 stories high, there's no reason why the new complex should be as high as 7 or 8 or 9 stories. Okay, the bars. I'm not sure if I need to say much more. As you'll see, that it takes most of the ground floor. It's open to the street, and there'll be gaming rooms. There will be there's no restaurant space, it seems, but there is tables on the street. It will be very much the way the Bourbon is at present, but the Bourbon, they put in the DA, they're claiming in their DA that it will operate outside from 10 to 10, but if you look on the DA that's on the window of the Bourbon now, they're applying for an extension of the licence from 10 till 12 at night. And I understand that some of the apartments have challenged their idea. They were keeping open till 12 o'clock until there was some inquiry, and then they started closing the doors at 10. And now they're officially trying to get them open till 12. Here is Darlinghurst Road, Lane, and here is Roslyn Street. Darlinghurst Lane, as you probably know, is barely wide enough for 2 cars. And they're talking about it being a 2-way street. Roslyn Street presently goes from west to east into Ward Avenue. The traffic appendix claims that the traffic will go from east to west into Darlinghurst Road. They obviously have never been on the site to look at it. Now, probably most importantly, and I couldn't avoid a literary note here, this reminds me of Ayn Rand's Fountainhead. The developer sees this project as the forerunner of things to come on Darlow Heights. Remember the windmills. The windmills were here from 1820 on, 1825, the highest point between the Heads and the Blue Mountains. This is the highest point. In spite of the developer's claim, this is no design excellence. No architecture students are going to come and flock to see it the way they do the Great White Whale in Roslyn Street. 2011 has a few good buildings from the 1830s through to 2010 or so. I'm saying, Mr. Developer, go back to your drawing board and give us something that respects the streetscape. Give us something we can be proud of, and we'll probably make more money that way. Okay, now those who have got the 10 points that I've there, I'll just run through them for everybody. Obviously there are many, many more points to make, but if you are going to put in a DA, and I can carry out the objection, and I do hope you will, the pink form at the bottom of the page will show you how to do it, and these are some of the things that come into my head. You might disagree with them, that's up to you. Okay, the DA misrepresents Potts Point, claiming that it is an entertainment, retail and commercial precinct when one of Australia's most densely populated residential areas. 18 to 32 Darlinghurst Road is surrounded by people's homes. And as the New South Wales Government Office of Environment and Heritage knows, Potts Point is, quote, has already reached a high level of density, and increased density should be discouraged. 2. The DA claims that it is providing additional retail spaces when 66% of the ground floor and over 80% of the street front is one bar passing as 2 independent bars. They have a common passageway. King's Cross doesn't need another beer barn. The council should prescribe mixed retail, restaurants and boutique bars. The DA wants to override the street's 6-storey height limit, 22 metres, inconsistently asserting that parts of it will be 8 or 9 stories high. Although Kingsley Hall is 30 metres tall, all the other surrounding buildings are 2, 3 and 4 stories. The DA repeatedly uses the undistinguished number 30A, that's the backpackers, to justify its height. The developer must resubmit plans for buildings which are no more than 22 metres. The DA does not make any provision for affordable housing or anything called public art. Why should it cost money? The DA does not provide floor plans, a fit-out specification or noise impact statement for the proposed bars. Some of that detail is in one of the attachments. It claims that it has significantly reduced the overall bar space, but 2 floors of the present Bourbon are shells and the proposed bar will have a much larger ground level footprint. The beer barn will trade 24/7 and have gaming facilities. The architect's drawings misrepresent the street facades, implying a row of shops when it will be one cavernous pub. The developer must revise and submit detailed drawings of this crucial space, showing multi-purpose retail usage as well as its fenestration and its acoustic strategies. Number 6. The DA wants to convert the very narrow Darlinghurst Lane into a 2-way street and redirect the Roslyn Street traffic. It claims erroneously that the Roslyn Street traffic goes into Darlinghurst Road. In fact, it goes east into Ward Avenue. This plan will also rob us of loading spaces and street parking. It could also handicap the police station's operations. Darlinghurst Lane and Roslyn Street must remain one-way streets and operate throughout the build. By the developer's own admission, the common levels will not get enough sunlight. 8. The developer wants to retain the facade of 30A to justify his bid for a tall building. This, of course, is a ruse. His own heritage report does not value its architectural significance because of its enclosed verandas, aluminium windows and painted bricks. There is no reason to keep this building or stick to this height. Number 9. The developer claims that this complex will, quote, create much more of a village atmosphere with a boutique lifestyle. Where the transition is happening in parts of the area, there's a huge vacuum left in others. It's now time to fill that vacuum to contribute to its rejuvenation and make that commercially viable. We need to build apartments and retail too. And that's from his Sydney Morning Herald quote. On the contrary, its scale, materials, verticality and beer barn will all disrupt the so-called village atmosphere and boutique lifestyle that he is so enamoured of. The council should demand more aesthetically and socially. There is no evidence that these developers have the aesthetic competence to marry quality homes with a beer barn.